Hiya, my name's Charlie and welcome to my channel. Right, how are you guys? How's your week been? What have you been up to? Have you had a good week? Let me know in the comments below. I'll talk about my week a little bit later on. First of all, we're going to get into my weekly reads. So, the books that I have finished this week and the books that I've started this week, etc, etc, etc. The first book that I finished was Indisputably Doris by Charles Heathcote. I also so this is the second book in the Doris Hour in the Hour Doris series. Me and Talia are hosting the Literally Dorisalong this like January, February and March. And so yeah, this is the second book and this is the third book. I finished both of these this week. This one follows on from the events of the first book, obviously, where at the end of the book something kind of dramatic happens with Doris, and as a result she's doing her adventures that happen in this. So we're going to be talking about this in our live show. So we've got a live show next Friday. I'll put the details of the date of the live show across the screen. It's this Friday coming. So yeah, I enjoyed both of these. Obviously I love Charlie's writing. I love the characters of Doris. I love Harold. I love Alf. I love Edith. These are so Doris is the lead character. Harold is her husband, who tells all the Doris stories, and Alf and Edith are their friends. So this book in particularly will, as we'll talk about in the live show, I felt a little bit sorry for Alf. So, but again, like I said, we're going to be discussing this in the live show. These are brilliant books. If you need like sort of comfy books to sort of like, if you're feeling a bit miserable, books to cheer you up, the Our Doris series is perfect. I'll put links in the description where to buy them from. So yeah, and it's not too late to join in the Literary Dorisalong if you still want to catch up, and then we're going to be we've still got the fourth book to talk about at the end of March, so you can always join in and then catch up with us then. So yeah, those are those books. Then I was already halfway through this. I finished Kurdish Women's Stories, which is edited by Hughes and Mahmoud. This is a lot different. This is non-fiction, and it's 25 accounts of women's stories from obviously Kurdish women's account stories. They're not stories, to be clear, they're non-fiction. There's real brutal topics talking in this. So there's like there's like a female soldiers. There's I think there's discussions of there is discussions of FGM. And lots of other many other brutal kind of like stories. This is not one I would go into lightly, but it was very interesting. As I said about in my previous video, if you've read Persepolis and kind of want a bit more information, I would say, like, obviously there's 25 different types of perspectives, but it might be one you'd be interested in. If you've read Persepolis, I highly recommend this as an alternative or as something else to go to, because it's obviously set in the same sort of area. So yeah, all set in the same area. So yeah, that's that one. And then another completely different. So all the books I've read this week are completely different. I also finished this romance. This is for the Sisteralong that has been hosted. That's the primary host for this is the lovely, gorgeous Victoria from What Victoria Read, and then the co-host for this book this month is Aoife from Pretty Purple Polka Dots, whose channel I also recommend. It is also a lovely. So yeah, this book, I completely adored this book. We follow Dani Brown and Zaf. Dani's an academic in the university, and Zaf is a security guard. What happens is there's they already know each other kind of. They are already sort of like friends with each other, kind of like. You know each other as sort of like friendly acquaintances, I would say, at the beginning of the book, and then the fire alarm goes off, and Dani's in the lift, and there's an incident where a photograph is taken when Zaf is carrying her out of the building, and events then the media get hold of it. It sort of becomes like an internet sensation between these things, and it basically leads to this fake dating trope, which obviously then leads to the obviousness of the romance. I love this book. It's gorgeous. It's fun. It's also, like I said, talks Talia Hibbert's books sort of always talk about deeper themes. Zaf has got his own trauma from, again, I don't want to spoil the book too much, but an incident happened with he lost his brother and his father, and there's a certain amount of trauma around that for him. So obviously he's carrying a lot of that with him, and like I said, Dani has her own baggage, as it's not baggage, but Dani has her own stuff with her as well. So obviously this kind of sometimes leads to like communication blocks, but yeah. And also in terms of representation in this book, there's like anxiety representation, there's a bisexual main character, and so that's another really, really good thing about this. It sort of discusses lots of other things really well, like I said. So yeah, this is just a really good book. I really enjoyed it, and I can see why lots of the other girls from the Sisteralong have Dani as their main favourite, one of their favourite main characters. So yeah, highly recommend it. Highly recommend the Sisteralong series, the Brown Sister series, of course, which is why I'm rereading it. So I can't wait to read the final book, which is Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and that'll be in March. So yeah, so that one is that one. That is the last book that I finished. In terms of, so right, I've got 2 audiobooks on the go, because despite what it might look like, I still am a little bit struggling to read physically. So I've got, I thought I would listen to, this is one of the books that was on my read or unhaul project, even though I was never really going to unhaul it, be honest with this book, because it's just one I wanted to sort of bump up the list to try and make me prioritise. This is Langston Hughes' debut novel, and it's one I'm sort of halfway through. It's only 200 pages, just over, so it's very, very short, very, very snippety, and I don't want to spoil it too much, but yeah, it's set in the early 1900s in Kansas, and we're following Sandy and his family, and it's set in a sort of obviously racially divided community. The lead character of Sandy is like a young boy, and he's just wonderful, and like I said, we sort of seeing him like growing up and stuff like that, and also the dynamics between him and his family, and events that are happening in the town, like I said, to do with racism and to do with all of like the things that you would expect to be happening in that era. Very, very hard-hitting topics. But yeah, the thing I love about this is the characters, I would say. It did take me a little bit of time to get into, because like I said, I was listening to the audiobook. I am listening to the audiobook, as well as sort of like marking it, and when I can and having time, and when my eyes aren't hurting, I sort of try and read a little bit and listen to it at the same time, which I think actually is when I get the most out of it. But yeah, overall, this is just, I feel like this is one I will want to reread, and again, I feel like it's one that the more you read, it's like any classics, isn't it? The more you reread classics, I feel like you get more out of them. But yeah, this is a good book so far, and like I said, Sandy is a really good character. His mum's really good. As his aunt Hagar in this book, I also loved, because yeah, she's just a really strong woman. Again, these are the kinds of characters that I enjoy the most. Yeah, so yeah, so far so good. Like I said, halfway through. I've never read any of Langston Hughes' fiction before. I've only ever read his poetry, and I've actually got, like, I think I've got one of his collections on my Kindle, and I'm going to try and I have started reading through that already. Like I thought that would be kind of good to read the 2 together, kind of thing. I also started listening to another audiobook sort of before bedtime, because obviously Not Without Laughter is quite heavy going, so I thought I'd have taken a note out of my sister's book, my sister Emily from Novelle Novels. She always listens to like she always reads middle grades before bed, so I thought when I have my bath I'll stick on this. So this is what I've been doing. It's the 5th Pages and Co book, and it's also on Scribd, so I think all of the Pages and Co books are actually on Scribd, FYI, if you're interested in the Pages and Co series. So this is a book where characters can go into the books and meet book characters. So in the first book, for example, Anna Green Gables is a very big character. Obviously, she's not actually in this book, well, not that I've read so far. But yeah, we're sort of like we're 5 books in now, and I think there's the Anna James. When I saw on Eric's video, I think she said she's writing the last book in the series, which will be out at the end of this year, which will be very sad, but also a close to the series, which is obviously good and exciting. So yeah, in this book we're following Milo, and again I can't really go into too many details because it's the 5th in the series, but so far what I've read I've really enjoyed. I say read because I've read and / listened to, and actually listening to the audiobooks I wasn't sure how it's going to be because I've only really ever read these physically, but the audiobooks are really fun. So yeah, that's that. And the last book that I've got that I'm going to say about, this is Someday Maybe by Onyi Nwabineli, and I haven't really read a whole lot more since I last spoke to you about it. I think I've read about 30 pages more because obviously I had to prioritise my Doris book. Obviously this is because, so I'm going to try and read that like this weekend. My treat to myself will be tomorrow when I'm at home, so I'm going to have a quiet day tomorrow, so I'm going to try and read as much as I can without my eyes hurting. So hopefully I will get a big chunk of that done, and hopefully I'm sure I'll be able to finish this before the end of next week. So yeah, that's that one. Haven't got too many more thoughts on this. I'll tell you more about this book when I finished it. So that's my take on that. Right, that is that. So in terms of my week, let me think, what have I been up to this week? We have I help out at my local library, and next week's very exciting, so we've been planning what we're going to be doing for it, because next week's obviously we've got World Book Day next week, which is very, very exciting, and obviously in all of our bookish communities. What are you guys up to for World Book Day? Have you guys got kids? Are you celebrating in any other ways? Let me know. So at the library, especially on the Monday, I do help out with story time, which is like basically reading obviously with the kiddies. On Monday we are going on a bear hunt, and we have putting up little posters around the library, so when the kids come in we're basically taking them on a bear hunt around the library, which is just going to be so much fun, and I can't wait for their little faces when we do it. So I've sort of been planning that. At the beginning of the week we were talking about all of that, and then I'm working out what I'm going to be doing on Thursday for the actual World Book Day with the kids. So yeah, that's very exciting. So still doing more plans for the plod along, and things like that are coming together. We have confirmed this week, I'm not going to tell you who they are, but we've confirmed some really good guests. Every single guest that me and the girls asked said yes, and we were so blown away. So we've got some really good people that we can't wait to talk to everyone about when the Women's Prize books gets announced. We can't wait to talk to everyone about it, especially at the live shows. If you're not I don't normally say this, but if you're not subscribed, genuinely you don't want to miss out, because we're going to have some amazing chats with some amazing booktubers. So yeah, you don't want to miss that. You need to be subscribed to Jem, Alice and myself, because to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the live shows. Trust me, that's what I will say. So and thank you to every single person that has agreed to be part of that. We really appreciate you. Right, so that is that. Another things I've been watching on telly. So there's a show that I watched. I'm going to talk about Dragrace after this. Obviously, guys know I always talk about Dragrace. But before then, there's a show that I've been watching with my family for years called Death in Paradise. It's a BBC show, and it's basically set sort of in the Caribbean, on the like fictionalized town of Saint Marie. It's a fictionalized island of Saint Marie. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with it. You guys around the world, you tell me if you've ever heard of Death in Paradise. I don't know whether you would have. Because I never know what BBC shows are available over your way. So, well, I'm speaking US specifically, but obviously internationally as well. So this is, in this show, it's a sort of very sort of a comedy show, and it's sort of like, I say comedy show, it's murder mystery, but sort of done in a very light-hearted way. The author is Robert Thorogood. He's written like some other like mysteries that are quite popular at the moment. Like I think it's called the Thursday Murder Club or something. No, that's the Richard Osman's one. Anyway, I'll put the picture on screen of the book that he's written. You will know who he is, basically. I'm sure you'll know the author and the writer of the show. So yeah, we've watched it for years, and this week was the last show, specifically. I think it's like, so how many seasons have there been? So there's been 12 seasons of it, and we've watched it from very, very early doors, and this is a show we rewatch over and over again, and we just love it. And this, my favourite of the detectives that appeared. There's been numerous detectives obviously over that time. My favourite detective was always Humphrey, or Humph as he was called on the show, and I just loved him so much. And he was sort of, I think he was the second detective to appear on the show. So I'll get on to talking about him in a second. So anyway, so we watched the last episode of that just at lunchtime today, and I got upset because I was like, I'm so sad that the show has come to an end, even though, as I will tell you, there is also now a sort of, they've stopped the one in San Marie, the fictionalised one in the Caribbean, but they've started filming one in the UK, and that is called Beyond Paradise, and it stars Chris Marshall obviously as Humphrey, and Sally Breton as Martha, which was at the end of his episodes, he left to go and live with Martha on the show because he declared his love for her and etc. So yeah, in this show it's set in Cornwall, sort of, and we watched the very first episode of that came out on Friday last night, so I watched that last night with my husband, and it still has the same sort of lovely gentle comedy. And I just love watching Humph and having him back on our screens. And Chris Marshall, I just love Chris Marshall. He's been in so many fun things. He's just brilliant. I love Chris Marshall. And the way they wrap, I'm not going to talk about this too long because I know a lot of you, I don't know how many of you watched the show, but I've seen the show. But yeah, the way they filmed the wrap-ups at the end of Death in Paradise are normally very distinctive, and they've got their own sort of pattern. So I didn't know whether that pattern would continue to this show, but it is different. They've done it completely differently. But the way they have done it, I love. So if you've I don't know how many you would have done, but if any of you have watched Beyond Paradise and have seen it like last night or recently, let me know your thoughts below, because I'd love to have a conversation about it if you have. So that's my random one for that. Then we'll get on to Drag Race. Oh my days. Yeah, Drag Race. This week's episode was a very, I feel like it's a very emotional episode. Everyone, it seemed like they were very sort of teary. They were very, I feel like obviously you're getting to that point where a lot of the queens are probably quite tired, I'm guessing. And so yeah, there was a lot of emotional stories. The one I'm thinking of in particularly is Anitra. Her story moved me so much. For those of you who don't watch the show, she revealed something very personal about an experience when that her family found out about her being a drag queen, and her mum basically first of all said that she accepted her, and then within a week was like nope, and kicked her out, which is obviously just horrendous. And Anitra is like, out of the drag queens, I think she's like one of my favourites. She's just, from the beginning of the show you could tell like she was going to be like, I feel like she's going to go, you knew she was going to go far from the beginning of the show, other than Sasha Colby, who obviously is everyone's queen. But yeah, no, Anitra this week, I was just like, oh my gosh. I wished her second look, so on the runway, talking runway, I wish her second look was a little bit better, because I feel like if it wasn't for that, she would have so won, because the look she made by hand herself, and that they had to, all of the drag queens at the end had to, their final look had to make something sort of themselves, based upon like previous seasons, because it's the 200th episode this week. But yeah, Anitra's look was by far the best look made out of all of the queens, in my opinion. It was just so gorgeous, and it just fit like a glove, and it was just, yeah, if she only had that second look, she definitely would have won. Even though Sasha obviously did win, I definitely think that it would have been Anitra's if it wasn't for that second look. So, yeah. Which I do agree with, obviously Sasha winning, but because she looked beautiful, but yeah, she was so nice. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, and I've got to go out in a second. I'm just about to go to Costco and live my hoarder's life. That's why I was joking with my bookish friends earlier. So yeah, living the hoarder's life, and go to Costco and get loads of bits and store up. But yeah, so I hope you guys are having a good week. Like I said, let me know what you're reading. Let me know how you're doing and sending you guys lots of love. Take care. Goodbye.